For not posting any video lately, and because I was busy doing a lot of work on a Hadoop side, and also learning a lot of new skills, and also trying to move towards the data science. So this video is mostly intended for someone with a data science background and trying to use and leverage existing Hadoop platform to their day-to-day data science work, which includes using some running some algorithm, running some calculations, which you guys have been doing for a while using SAS, but with advent of Hadoop, now you guys have freedom to choose a different programming language, and specifically Python is a good start point if you want to write something on the Spark with full support of PySpark. So this tutorial basically the first part of series of tutorial, which I'll be focusing on the Python development for data science work. So I'll start with the hello world and some functions, some variable, and the very basic example of how to use and parse CSV files. And following tutorials will have a more complex and more specific example of using, say, reading and writing SAS code, SAS files, and also with how to work with Panda and NumPy libraries for your statistical analysis. So let's get started with it. And so we'll be covering these topics. First, I'll cover some, say, hello world program. If you guys are already familiar with Python, you can skip to the next section. But this is for someone who is just starting with the programming with a minimal or no programming background at all. Because unlike as a software developer, if you're coming, you have learned mostly C or any other kind of language. But if you are coming from a economics or statistical background, probably you may not have that experience. So I'll go with the start with the simple example. So let's right now I'm using a Mac platform. You can pretty much use the same principle for Windows or Linux based work. So here I'll to start a Python interpreter, it's very easy. You can start, just type it Python. For Windows you have to download and install Python library, which is just pretty much click install for setup, and Python comes inbuilt with your Mac and Linux workstation. So hello world, if you see, it's pretty simple. Like hello world has been traditionally way of starting a program since Dennis Ritchie's first example of hello world for the C. So hello world, if I want to print a hello world, I just need to do that. That's it. You don't need to do any compilation or anything. So this is the beauty of using an interpreter language, because you don't need to compile a source code or anything. You just write the code and interpreter executes it. If there is a problem with the your syntax error, it will immediately throw the error. Say example, if I do this and I say, it says see line 3 syntax error, and so this is the first example I want to show, just hello world. And in Python, the ease of use of Python is that everything is on the fly. Take an example, if you want to use a variable, if you want to use any kind of data type, you don't have to declare it, you can simply use it. Take an example, I want to use a variable, say var1, and I don't need to do anything. I just var1, I use it, say hello, like this. Variable is very important thing, because unlike when you are starting going forward with writing the code, you may not know each and everything what will happen in the future. So you cannot pretty much hard code everything in the code. You need to use some kind of configurable parameters which can change on the runtime. So these are called variables. Variable name mean they can change the value and behavior during the execution of the program. So if I say var1 is right now this, if I do I can simply do var1 like this also, it will say this. And now I can change var1 again. Say I want to say this. So the nature of variable means it can change its value based on different conditions. So variable allows you to write more complex control statement. So very simple and basic control statement being if, else, and if you want to go through the looping logic. So if I want to say variable allows you also have flexibility to write a logic in it. So if I want to say I want to write if logic, so if I say var1 equal to word, then I'll say print, got it, and else no. So when I execute it, because see var1, last known value of var1 was word. So if it matches the string, it execute this part of section of the code. If it doesn't, then it won't execute. But in this case, it was matching, so it executed this particular code. So this is a simple example of using variable and some simple control statement. And I didn't cover the very basic principle of programming. If you guys want it, you can leave a comment below. I can come up with another video. So this is a building block of any programming logic. You have set of variable, you have set of statement, and you create a program. So now next step, if I want to move, I was like introduction of variable is, and variable can be anything. It could be integer, it could be a string, it could be anything, floating, a double, and second, I'm just covering very basic things like, so next will be the function. So function is nothing but is a sequence of some statements which you can tag it together as a single execution unit. So it means, say if I assume this particular logic, assume if I have to use it 100 times the same. So it doesn't make sense to write the same code 100 times. So what you do instead, so instead of this writing the whole thing, I can write a small called function, say my foo, and write anything. And I can put this logic inside the function. So next time if I have to use this whole piece of code, rather than writing the whole code, I just have to call the function. So if I can, either I can type, actually I have already written some code here, so we can use that as an example. So if you see this hello function, hello, same thing. You can execute as a single statement, but if you want to use it as a function, so you can pretty much put as a function. You can for now you can understand function is a kind of tag. It's a tag for execution of sequence of your code. So here if you see a different function, I took an example which is variable function. I named it variable function. So variable, it takes one argument. Argument is something, argument could be anything. It could be variable, it could be a constant value, anything you pass it on a function, and then inside the function you can now put any kind of logic you want for execution of your code. So let's run this example. This is so running, and one quick tip about the Python: when you're using any editor, I'll upload this presentation as well. It's better to use IDE, which is like integrated development environment. So use either Sublime Text 3 or Visual Studio Code, PyCharm, or Vim based on your platform, because it may not be very intuitive and easy to write in a simple text editor, because Python is a indentation based programming language. Like, it doesn't have a semicolon or end of statement marker. So the only way the interpreter will know that your statement has ended if using either space or tab. So if you use these good editors, so these like to making sure the tab is aligned or spaces are aligned, you don't have to worry about it. Otherwise you'll spend hours and hours debugging it, won't understand it, and it saves a lot of effort. So you can, right now I'm using PyCharm. I have used Sublime and other two. So this is a code. So for now you can understand function is a kind of tag. It's a tag for execution of sequence of your code. So here if you see a different function, I took an example which is variable function. I named it variable function. So variable, it takes one argument. Argument is something, argument could be anything. It could be variable, it could be a constant value, anything you pass it on a function, and then inside the function you can now put any kind of logic you want for execution of your code. So let's run this example. This is so running, and one quick tip about the Python: when you're using any editor, I'll upload this presentation as well. It's better to use IDE, which is like integrated development environment. So use either Sublime Text 3 or Visual Studio Code, PyCharm, or Vim based on your platform, because it may not be very intuitive and easy to to write in a simple text editor, because Python is a an indentation based programming language. Like, it doesn't have a semicolon or end of statement marker. So the only way the interpreter will know that your statement has ended if using either space or tab. So if you use these good editors, so these like, to making sure the tab is aligned or spaces are aligned, you don't have to worry about it. Otherwise you'll spend hours and hours debugging it, won't understand it, and it saves a lot of effort. So you can, right now I'm using PyCharm. I have used Sublime and other too. So this is a code. So executing the any code is pretty simple. I just here I I have this one, say hello. See, if I execute this particular code, so what it did, it took the first variable and yeah, here I executed the code. So what happens was it start execution from here. So first function being hello function, so it printed that. Second was variable function. So I'm calling this function, passing a argument called working, and working as taken by this function as this variable called my var. It's a kind of alias for that particular string. And what I'm doing, I'm concatenating these two strings and putting it outside. So in Python is a anyway very intuitive language. Like, now if I want to concatenate two strings, in Java or any C programming language, you pretty much have to use a library, string cat or something like that. But in these modern interpreting language, you can pretty much do a plus and it works. So this is example of using variable. And next we can move on to the next section is CSV parsing. CSV parsing, one of my friend, he's a data scientist, and he's same that drive me to write this create this video. He said he's having a lot of day-to-day work with the CSV parsing and he's having hard time getting it. So I'll take a basic example of CSV. First I'll start with how to do a basic file operation, and then we'll go with the CSV. So file operation is pretty straightforward. So you don't need to have any module for file. So file operation is simple. You can do a open. First, in programming languages, any file when you are interacting, you have to open it some or other form. All programming language provide different APIs, and Python also has a similar. You give a open. So say I want to open this file. Assume this is a CSV file from my PC, and see if I open it. Now open is just, it creates the index. If I do F, it says open file. It just a pointer to the file, but still we don't have the data of it. So in order to get whole data, we can just do a say output, something like I can read the here, and if I do this and I put, see, you see the whole file has been read in one shot. And there are a lot of APIs actually. I'll put the link of the reference manual of these standard libraries. You can go through it. There are many different kind of APIs that you can use for as per your requirement. I'll take the simplest and the most obvious examples here to make for sake of understanding. So once I say read, so this read API, what it does, it reads the whole file and put into a string, and the out is basically a string. If I want to know what is the type of this guy, I can just do it. See, it says string type. So now I have this whole string in my buffer, so I can play with it. So yeah, from the data type, I can say it is a kind of CSV file, mean comma separated value. So each value has been separated by comma, and a new line is, and the next entry or the next row is always defined with a new line character. When I say new line character, this is /n is called new line. It tells the editor to put the line to the next line. So say if I want to say, let's try to format this particular whole string. So I can do it out, and Python has an inbuilt modifier or methods for your data object. So say this is a file. The most common you will use is a split. Split is what it does. It splits the string based on the character that you give. So say right now I want to split, I do this. So if you do not put anything in the split, by default it splits with new line character. So whenever it sees a new line, it splits the string and put it into a next string. So the output what I'm getting is a list of integers, and each list is containing list of string, and each string is separated with a new line. See, if you see here, it was new line, and just after new line it created a new list. So if I check the type of this guy, see, it's a list. So it's actually it's doing for you the heavy lifting job is already done. So now your file is a nicely formatted. It has a it is a list of strings. So next operation is, say if I want to fetch first element. So what I need to do is I go here, I do 0. So when I do 0, it is actually returning me the first row of it. So same way I can pretty much go to any row and get that particular data. So say 2, I get the second. So based on the data type, and I say 3. So each time I'm getting this. Last time I used the wrong thing. So each time I'm getting, and say if I want to execute now, I want to go to further detail of it, say I want to fetch this particular element. So if we know this particular data type is a string which is separated by comma, so I can use another round of split. I do a split, and now I specify based on what I say split on comma. So now what I get another list of strings being splitted based on the comma. So now I want to use this particular element. I just need to fetch this guy, and I have it here. So in that way, what I'm right now I'm fetching, if I open this particular CSV file, which is right here, if you see the running, walking, these are various data is there. So if I go back here, this is actually the third means the third row and the first column. So the data is like 0, 1, 2, 3, this one. So I'm getting the running data for the third element or whatever the data means. So same way you can pretty much fetch anywhere. So this was an example of using without using any module. So I'm opening the file, parsing it, and getting my data. So you can get it done. Second option is you can use a inbuilt Python CSV handler, which is I've written already a code for this guy. So which is called a CSV. CSV is a default Python CSV parsing utility, and what it does, it hides some of the function like I was doing split and those things. It hides it from you, and it gives you a nice user level interface. So let's if I want to use, and so in order to use any library in Python, you have to always import it first so that the whole namespace is available for you. And now this CSV, if you go, if I can, I mean I'll send you the link of standard library for this particular module. And for now, we'll just play with this guy. So assume I created a script already. I will just selectively use one of it, because otherwise it will be too much typing. So say I want to use a read CSV. I want to use this thing. I have already here, so I can just comment this and uncomment it. So now I want to run this. So to run any script, we just do this and it will run. So now what it did, it actually reading this particular first function. So in function, what I did, I created again sequence of some execution statements as a function. In function, I'm passing a variable, and a variable is what variable I have already defined. It is the file. This is the CSV file. So this function read is as input file, and now what it does is, if you see, I'm opening the file in a very different way. Earlier I did a f equal to open something something, and now I'm using a with keyword. With keyword, what happens is you don't have to worry about closing the file descriptor. With is optimized read. So what it does, it opens the file for you and gives you the file handler, and same way you can read the file handler, and when you get out of the function, the file is automatically closed. You don't have to do anything for it. So this is the one advantage of using these more advanced feature of it. So what am I doing here is open, I'm reading like input file, providing input file, this is this value, then reading as CSV file, it is nothing but a pointer, and now I'm giving this pointer to this CSV. I'm creating a new object using this CSV reader, and I'm giving this pointer, and I'm specifying what is the delimiter. So because CSV file is very flexible, it could be pipe delimiter, it could be anything, tab delimiter as well. So I'm giving a delimiter as a comma, and now I'm parsing through, once I get this, I'm looping through each and every row and I'm printing it. So this is what pretty much you see here I'm doing, is printing each and every row. And I think the last row being the huge, so that's why so many elements you see here. So this is the first example. You did a read, and say I want to do a same. I put the example of without lines. The code I'll put on a GitHub. You can check it. So this is simple read without the module. It is the one example I just did for you. Another example I'll take how to write a file. Write a file is as simple as reading. See, first section I did the same thing. I'm reading here. I didn't use the CSV module. I used just no module. And then I'm writing. Only difference is when you open the file, you have to give W. W means you are writing the file. And make sure whatever this path you are giving, you have a write permission to that folder, otherwise it will fail. And same way, I'm creating the CSV writer handler and giving the delimiter. And same way, now I have the lines. Lines is nothing but it is this kind of data structure, like this kind of yes, it is this kind of data structure. This kind of data structure. So when you iterate through a loop, you loop through a list, then the iterator, what it returns on each execution, returns the next existing row to it. So same way you get this lines and you keep writing this one. And again, if you see here, what I'm doing here is line, and I'm doing strip and split. Strip is another method available to strip any spaces. If you have any spaces in the element, it will just strip from front and the rear. So I'm stripping it and then splitting. And strip operation will be very good for you, specifically for statistical operation, because you need to have each and every data as an integer variable, integer or a floating point. Take an example. If this guy you want to treat as a float. If this guy already has space like this, and when you try to read and try to convert it into floating, the API may crack because it doesn't recognize, it cannot convert space and a number into space. It's better always to have, if you have these kind of data operation, once you read it, just strip it to make sure that next time when you try to convert it to some kind of data type, it will be easy for you. And maybe I'm going too fast, but this one I'll explain you in bit detail. This is the last example. So this what I'm doing is, in this particular example, I'm going to read this. I'm going to read the CSV file as is in the previous example, and then I'm opening a file to write it. But this time, what I decided, I want to change some value. Say the first element is a running data. Okay, I want to say multiply running data with 100 for some reason. Okay, so what I did was I opened the writer, and from previous execution, this part of code, I already have the lines, which is the whole buffer of the read file. I'm now going through each and every line, and I'm looking for the first element, which is the running object. I'm just printing right now here, and here, if you see, I tried it a little bit here, a new thing you will see is a try and exception. So I'll show you when I execute this code. So what is happening here if I execute it again? Yeah. So right now what I'm doing is, if you see this code, each time I'm executing, first is I'm just reading the file. Second, I'm going through, I'm looping through the output of it, and each line by line I'm printing the first element. So first element being, see, running. If you check this data, the first element, first row is this, and second row is this, and now my job, I want this first, the running data, to be multiplied by 100. So in order to do that, I need to look for that zero first element and make sure that when I'm iterating through the loop, I cannot convert it running is a string, I cannot convert it to a floating point or anything. So that's what I put it, try and catch means, here I will try to convert the 0th element into a floating point and multiply it by 100. But what happens if it cannot convert, say running, the running is a string, right? So if it cannot convert it, it will go on except. So it will cause an Python library will create an exception and go here. And in continue mean, in the loop, continue means just go with the next element. So next element, what it will do, it will pick up the next element, which is next being this guy. And now after getting that, now it getting the running, obviously this will pass because I'm using a minus this value this time, and I'm able to convert it. And once I get it, I'm just writing it back to a new file, which is I just created right here. So I'm using sp write row, and here if you see a small little trick, what I did, I took the whole line, and because now I don't want to write the whole line again, I just want to write this much and modified this one. So output will look like this. See, it is multiplied here. So what I'm doing is I did, because this was a floating point, and convert to string, and by doing this braces, I'm making it as a single unit list, and then I'm concatenating it with the remaining part of the list, which is, see, if you see, I did 1 and colon, which means from here to the end of it. So the output you are getting is this one plus this thing. So each time the first element has been multiplied by 100 and it is done. So if you run this code here, see this one, and this is actually pretty much printing. So if I just comment this particular print, and that's it. I don't know why it's printing everything, because it is going here. Okay, CSV file, output, input. So yeah, so this is pretty much for this example. An output file, if you see here, so I think that's it for now. And yeah, and next session I'll cover maybe some Panda libraries. And if you guys have any question, you can post on the comment below. I will cover other topics for data scientists. And thank you for watching the video.